We don't follow the Rams. We don't use their budgets. We don't go to the areas they recommend. Nothing that they promote is the way we do anything. We're not in a gringo neighborhood. If we were to do those things, if we were to follow their recommendations, we likely wouldn't be able to live abroad. Hello, my dear followers. Frank and Angie's channel. We sold everything and left North America and are living abroad. You know, let's just call them Ram magazines. They are promoting several places at once at this time. And it's just, you know, when you run through their promotion and you see how people are being led to go to these places, their promotions, they border on or are actually bait and switch, because there's a difference between clickbait and bait and switch. The clickbait is just to get you to click on something to watch it or read it or something, but the bait and switch, they're trying to sell you something, or they have something for sale and they use a bait and switch to, you know, draw you in and change things on you. You know, like they were saying that you could live in Panama on $1,500 in their little titles, but then when you read further down, it always said, well, you had to buy some pretty expensive real estate. I think it's pretty expensive. I know that that's a relative term. You got people in big cities that are always comparing to their big cities. That's always a big issue with these retire abroad enclaves. And I still, to this day, see articles and blogs and information where the people are just bragging about how much cheaper it is than where they're from, and they just so happen to be, they're from New York. So to me, that just doesn't have as much value as if somebody from, say, I don't know, Nebraska said, wow, it's so much cheaper than where I'm from, and I'm from Nebraska or Alabama or something. You know, it just doesn't have as much value to me, because, as you know, 90% of the rest of the world, I like to say a high percentage of the rest of the world, is cheaper than California and New York. So now they've changed it, and they're giving a range where they're saying you can live in Panama on $1,800 to $2,900. Matter of fact, a lot of their budgets fall within that range. Newsflash, I got news for you. I can show you how to live the life of your dreams on those amounts in the States. I'm not saying that because I'm trying to say that I don't want you to move to Panama. I mean, if you want to move to Panama or Ecuador or wherever, you should do that. But what I am saying is that it isn't anything to me. Let's say I live in the States on, let's just pick a figure. Let's just say, okay, I live in the States on $2,500. I live as a professional frugalist in the States on less than $2,000. And if you told me and you said, well, you know, I can show you how to have a great life in Panama for $2,500 or $2,900, that just wouldn't be all that exciting to me. How about you? And so if finances isn't part of that deal, why even talk about budgets? All right, so can you guys tell the difference? It is a Central American lunch. It still has the meat, the legumes, and the yes you can eat it salad, because we're in Panama. And you still get the rice. All right, well, let's do it. You know, and you've got these streamlined budgets too, where you've got all these basics in there, and sure, it covers the majority of the basics, but what about things like property taxes, you know, or what if you want a Vonage phone? I've got a Vonage phone. It's kind of expensive for a phone. I mean, Skype's cheaper, but you know, when I talk to my mom, she calls me on her cell phone. So I like to have a really crisp line, you know. And when I talk to my friends in the States, when they call me, I call them. You know, the conversation, the line is super crisp, and so I want to keep my Vonage phone. And by the way, you want to send us a few credits on that. We have a link below if you want to sign up with Vonage. I highly recommend it. I wouldn't bring it up if it wasn't something that we don't use ourselves. And so we've had the Vonage line. If you've been watching our channel, you know I made a video on gadgets to bring with you when you move to Ecuador. And the Vonage phone was in there. So we've had our Vonage line bondage line that long, going on 8 years. So, and we still have it. I want to keep it. So I'm just saying, you know, that you have, besides these streamlined budgets that they list on their websites, you've got other things too, you know, besides just the basic budget. You know, you've got things like, you know, maybe travel, or you know, maybe going back to the States, or what have you. I mean, you take your pick. You can just add a lot to that. For example, here in Panama, we're spending the same amount on food, dollar for dollar, as we were in the States. And the thing about that is, though, that as a professional frugalist and life hacker, I was getting way more variety and quantity of foods in the States for the same money. You know, things like honey straight from the bee farmer and stuff like that. The variety was just much higher back in the States. Well, you can guess what happened. Yes, we ate the whole thing. But briefly, if you'll allow me to just briefly tell you that this reminds me of when we moved from the Pacific Northwest, when we used to go out to eat there years ago, and it was like $10–15, which it's way more than that now. And then we moved to the South, and it was like less than $5. That's what this reminds me of, because it's like $4.80 or something, you know.
This is $4.50.
$4.50 plus tax.
Oh, okay.
But don't be misled. We don't do that on this channel. The real estate is not back 20-year priced. So I doubt anybody would fly out here just for the $5, you know, lunch. And so the bottom line is that we don't use their budgets. We don't go to the areas they recommend. We don't follow the Rams. Nothing that they promote is the way we do anything. We're not in a gringo neighborhood. If we were to do those things, if we were to follow their recommendations, we likely wouldn't be able to live abroad. We have people that came to us in Cuenca, Ecuador, that were following the Ram magazines and had left Cuenca, Ecuador, and we interviewed this lady. She left because she was going where all the other gringos were going and doing things the way the Ram said it. She actually could no longer, in the middle of the Ram bubble, could not afford to live in Cuenca, Ecuador. And then she found our channel. It gave her hope, and we helped her to get a house at local rates and that kind of thing. So she was able to do a turnaround and actually come back to Cuenca thanks to our material. But again, you know, even with our material, if the focus is on the very same locations, in time those areas just become a bubble, and it's just harder and harder to do things. It's just a counterintuitive way to study living abroad, is to follow these Ram magazines. So anyway, thanks for listening, and have a good day.